Ripple just quietly pulled off something almost no crypto company in Europe has managed to do, and the price chart is only telling you half the story. If you've seen the headline, XRP just got a massive EU green light, stop scrolling for the next few minutes because what actually happened is very different from what most channels are claiming, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to watch for next. I'm your host on XRP Financial Horizon, and today we're separating the real regulatory win from the price action noise that's been confusing everyone this week. Here's what actually happened on paper. On June 23, 2026, Luxembourg's financial regulator, the CSSF, handed Ripple a preliminary crypto asset service provider license, CASP for short, under the EU's Markets in Crypto Assets framework, known as MICA. It came in the form of a green light letter, and once fully finalized, it opens the door for Ripple to offer regulated crypto asset services to banks and businesses across all 30 countries in the European Economic Area. 30 countries under one regulatory pathway is not a small thing. It's the kind of approval most crypto firms spend years chasing and never actually reach. Now pay attention to this part because it's the detail almost every other channel is skipping. This license was issued to Ripple, the company. It was not issued to XRP, the asset. MICA licenses go to service providers, not to tokens, so the idea that XRP got approved simply isn't accurate. Ripple cleared a compliance hurdle. The token in your wallet did not receive any separate stamp of approval. They're connected, but they're not the same thing, and that distinction is exactly why the price didn't behave the way the headlines implied it should. So what does this actually change for Ripple's business? Paired with its existing EU electronic money institution license, this new CASP approval lets European banks, fintechs, and corporate clients tap into Ripple's full stablecoin and payments infrastructure through one single integration, instead of stitching together multiple licenses across different countries. That means collecting funds, converting them, and paying them out, all under one roof, for the first time in the region. It's a real operational win for Ripple's business in Europe. But notice what's generating that value. It's RLUSD and the payments rails, not XRP sitting on an exchange. A green light letter also isn't the finish line, and this matters if you're trying to time anything around it. It signals that a company has met the core requirements, but full authorization, along with the ability to formally operate across the entire EEA, only kicks in once the remaining conditions are cleared. There is a useful comparison, though. Ripple's EMI license went from green light in January to full authorization by early February of 2026. If this follows a similar path, full CASP authorization could land within a similar window, though that's not guaranteed. The timing of this approval isn't a coincidence either. It landed just days before the July 1, 2026 deadline, after which any unlicensed crypto firm operating in the EU is in breach of MiCA. And here's a number that puts this in perspective. By mid-2026, roughly 83% of crypto firms in the EU still hadn't secured their MiCA licenses. Ripple is now one of only about 210 firms that are fully compliant. One name that's noticeably missing from that compliant list is Binance, one of the largest exchanges on the planet. So now the question everyone actually clicked on this video to get answered, is any of this bullish for the XRP token itself? Stay objective here because the data doesn't fully support the hype. The commercial engine behind this whole approval is RLUSD and Ripple payments, not XRP directly. In Ripple's own announcement, XRP barely gets a mention beyond standard language. And here's the part that really tells the story. XRP actually dropped close to 2.9% on the day this news broke. It wasn't the license dragging it down specifically. A broader risk-off move across crypto that day did most of the damage. Either way, the market's immediate reaction was the opposite of what the headlines suggested it should be. There is a fair long-term case here, though, so let's not throw it out entirely. The XRP ledger is the actual rail Ripple's payment products run on, so as RLUSD and Ripple payments get more institutional use across Europe, there's a reasonable argument that more activity eventually flows through the same infrastructure XRP secures. That's a legitimate ecosystem thesis worth tracking over the coming quarters. It's just not the same as saying this news directly pumps XRP demand today. One is a slow-building structural story, the other is a headline. Confusing the two is where a lot of traders get burned. If the MiCA news isn't behind this week's move, what actually is? Look at the chart. XRP opened July near $1.04 and has climbed to around 1.15, a gain of roughly 8 to 11%, depending on the data source you're checking. That's a market-wide bounce, not a 2-week delayed reaction to a regulatory filing. Crypto doesn't usually wait that long to price something in, so if you've seen anyone tying this rally directly to the MiCA approval, that connection doesn't really hold up once you check the timeline. The real tailwinds are sitting in a few specific data points. XRP ETF inflows have now been positive for 8 straight weeks, with cumulative net inflows landing around $1.47 billion. On-chain data also shows exchange outflows accelerating, which usually points to holders moving XRP into storage rather than preparing to sell. Add in the fact that July has historically been one of XRP's stronger months, and you get a much more grounded explanation for this bounce: steady accumulation and shrinking available supply, not a single news event. Now here's where it gets tactical, because the levels ahead matter more than the headline. The first resistance sits around $1.18, lining up with the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement. Heavier resistance is clustered at $1.20 to $1.22, and that exact zone has capped every bounce attempt inside XRP's year-long falling channel. This isn't the first time XRP has approached this ceiling. It's the fourth or fifth, depending on how you're counting, and each time it's been turned away. On the downside, $1.05 to $1.10 is the support zone bulls need to hold. Lose that, and this recovery starts looking a lot more like a dead cat bounce than a trend change. But a clean break and a hold above $1.20 would be genuinely different from anything we've seen in the past year. The first real sign that this falling channel is losing its grip. That's the number to actually watch, not the MiCA headline. So here's where all of this lands. Ripple picked up a real, meaningful regulatory win in Europe, and it strengthens the company's standing at a moment when most competitors still aren't compliant. But it's a license for the business, not an endorsement of the token. And this week's price move has far more to do with ETF flows and shrinking supply than it does with a CSSF letter. Watch $1.20. That's where this story actually gets decided, not in a press release. Drop a comment telling me whether you think XRP breaks $1.20 this month or gets rejected again. I read through these and I want to know where the XRP Financial Horizon community actually stands on this one. If this breakdown helped you cut through the noise, subscribe so you don't miss the next level update. See you in the next one.